morning, everybody. I toast to you and all you do. I hope you're having a fantastic morning. It is literally 0 degrees outside right now. It's in Fahrenheit. It's really cold. Brr. So, obviously still inside. Still waiting on spring to come. It was warm here on Imbolc, so Collect definitely was out collecting wood. We're going to have another 6 weeks of winter. But it's okay because we need the snow. It's just too cold right now to snow. So I guess I wish it was snowing and not freezing. Anyways, today I want to answer a question that I get asked often, that I see asked often. It's one of those things that pagans ask this question, non-pagans ask this question. And there are two parts to this question. So the first question is, what holidays do you celebrate? And the second part is always, do you celebrate Christian holidays on top of the pagan holidays? Or some variation of those two questions. So the reality is that this is one of those things that depends on the person. And I know that's a super frustrating question, especially when you're first starting out, or when you're trying to explain to somebody who's non-pagan, well, this is how I celebrate. They want like a straight answer, like all pagans do this. And I always counter Christians or non-pagans who are asking such questions. I asked them, well, do you go to church on Ash Wednesday? Do you go to all of the Sabbaths? Do you go to all of the things? Do you celebrate all of the fasts? Depending on which monotheistic religion that you follow, they all have a lot of holidays. They have a lot of rules. This just came into my head. I was reading an article about ancient Christians and pagans, and one of the ways that ancient pagans knew who was Christian is that Christians didn't celebrate as many holidays. So they would just stay home on those days, and depending on which, they say cult, it's not like modern day cult, like where you're following the crazy person. These are just different churches, how they would be looked at today. And each church had their own holidays. Just like modern Christianity has many different holidays, or if you're a Jehovah's Witness, they don't celebrate any of the holidays. So it really depends on what path, what faith, what spirituality you follow, and what calls to you. So, again, the most frustrating answer that you probably get constantly, it just depends on the person, and they're all going to celebrate different paths, different holidays that correlate with their path. So, I know that's frustrating. So let's run down the most common pagan holidays. Super fast. You can watch over the year. I'm making videos for each holiday. I'll talk about myths and traditions and different things that you can do. You can check out the Imbolc one that I just posted. So they'll come up with the holidays just so that I'm in the spirit of the groove of that. But the real reason I posted this video, that I'm making this video, is because of Valentine's Day. But we'll get there. So the pagan wheel of the year consists of 8 holidays. These holidays are the Sabbaths, or the solstices, and the equinoxes, and the e-Sabbaths, which are in between those days. Typically, it's about every 40 days, or 40 days after the Sabbath, there's an e-Sabbath. And everybody's going to call them something different, or pronounce them different. I was watching a video earlier from this guy that I just found. Absolutely love it. I'm going to add him to my pinned list. But he called anathema something totally different. I can't even remember how he pronounced it. Athema, maybe? I don't know. I've always learned it athame, the handled knife that you use in magic. Anyways, so just, don't get caught up on pronunciations, I guess is what I'm saying there. Anyways, so there are 8 holidays. Typically, most pagans start the pagan year either on Samhain or Halloween, or on Yule, or the winter equinox. We're going to start on Samhain because the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning, and we start in the darkness so that we can come out of that. So we have what the Celtics would have called Samhain, what people in South and Central America call us Dias de Muertes, or at least in Spanish-speaking countries. And they celebrated that before Christians came. Let's just as a side note, and we'll get more in depth in that later, but the Day of the Dead was something that was celebrated long before Christianity. One of the reasons Christianity was so easily consumed by people of Central America is because of their bloodlust, and not like their love for blood, but their belief in blood and magic and blood and spirituality, in that Jesus bled himself to death on the cross as a sacrifice for his people, and therefore he gave all of his life force for the people. So it was very easy for them to absorb this into their spirituality and convert to Christianity and Catholicism, mostly Catholicism. But anyways, so they celebrated that holiday long before as a celebration of their ancestors and of the dead. All around the world, you can find this from Korea to and I'll get into that in that video, like I said, when we get closer to that holiday. But anyways, so we have Samhain, the Day of the Dead, Halloween, All Saints Day is what Catholics would call it, I guess. There's just many different names, all of them centering around the idea of death and the end and honoring our ancestors and the end of the cycle. In the Wiccan year, or pagan, modern, neo-paganism wheel of the year, this is the end. This is when the god dies. This is when the cycle ends and we go into the cauldron of rebirth, or into the unknown, or across the river, or however your mythology plays out for you. Again, the visualization that you see when you're doing your meditations and your spiritual work and you're in that state are specific to you. The divine energy, the energies that be, will come to you how they are meant to come to you, and therefore you might see something different. When you visualize and allow the image to come to you, not what you pre-conceptualize, but what you visualize, is something that's going to be comfortable for you. So when you close your eyes, it's just like when we're doing mental temple work. When you go to that place, it's yours, nobody else's. And the divine energy and the whatever you call it, the spirits, your spirit guides, they're going to come to you in a way that works for you. And that's the same with your holidays practice and the way that you see this cycle of the year. And I guess overall in pagan themes of holidays or toasts or blood moons, or not blood moons, but moon holidays, however you keep track, because some of them use moons instead of the Sabbaths. So they're not all the same, but they do all connect with the wheel of the year, like the cycles of the year. So you're celebrating new beginnings and birth in the spring, and you're celebrating death and ends and reaping what you sow in, October, in that time of year. So, okay, tangent, sorry, I can't help it. As I mentioned in my Imbolc video, midwinter video, I really love the holidays. They're it's like a universal way I find for people to communicate, because when I'm talking to someone who doesn't celebrate Samhain, but they celebrate the blood moon and they do that toast, and they're like, well, this is what I do on the blood moon. And we're not talking about the cosmetic and hallmarky, whatever modern money trademark kind of Halloween. We're talking magically when we celebrate these two holidays, even though they do that on the full moon of late October or early November, and I do that on a specific date, we're still doing the same thing. We're honoring our ancestors. We are honoring people that we have loved who have died. We are ending a cycle and preparing for a new one, okay? So you're going to see that theme around Halloween. And then we go through the period of darkness from Halloween to the winter solstice, from Samhain to the winter solstice, Yule. At Yule, the god's energy is reborn, and depending on your visualization of this holiday, the mother goddess dies in birth and is transformed into the crone goddess, who then nurtures the baby, or they go into like a state of like dark internal hibernation and healing. Mother goddess doesn't necessarily die. In some mythologies, that waits till, beliefs, whatever, that waits till Imbolc or midwinter. So on Yule, we celebrate new beginnings. We celebrate the divine birth, both as the new baby and as a mother. Then we come to Imbolc, which is February 1st, which we just celebrated, midwinter. It's hard to pronounce the other words just off the top of my head because they're not in English. And it's already bad enough to butcher their pronunciations when I'm reading them, let alone for memory. So I love it. And I need to speak to more people who speak those languages. I have to go back in time. I wish. We'll work on that. Anyways, so we have Imbolc or midwinter, then we come to the equinox, and then we come, which is the spring equinox, we're celebrating new life. Then we come to high spring or Beltane, when we're celebrating the coming together of fertility, bringing opposites together to create something new. And then we have the summer solstice, when we're celebrating the height of masculine energy and the heat of sun, but at the same time trying to bring that with the polarity of water, and we honor the water. We come to the early harvest, or Lunasa, or Lagashnagashnog, if you if you read the Gaelic word, there's like GHs and Ns and Ds, and it does not look like Lunasa. But that's the whatever. So, and I'm sure someone's going to be like, I don't pronounce it that way. I pronounce it some way different. Like I said, don't get caught up on pronunciations. That's not what's important. Your ancestors know what you're talking about when you're communicating with them, your spirit guides. Sometimes I've had spirit guides whisper in my ear, it's not Samhain, it's Samhain. And I was like, whoa, okay. They're just, you're pronouncing that wrong. Maybe look that up. They'll tell you. You just have to learn to listen. Anyways, so we come to the early harvest, which is August 1st. And that's when we are celebrating the first fruits of our labor and all of that grand stuff. Then we come to the equinox again, and then back to the Samhain, the last harvest. So there's 8 of those. They go through the wheel, and it's the natural cycle of the earth. So, in my research of even in Inca Empire and the things that we have on their religion and their belief system, their holidays line up. Obviously, they're opposite because they're in the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. But if you look at what they're celebrating in the middle of their winter, it matches up with the same midwinter holiday that they were having in the northern hemisphere, because we're honoring the cycles of the earth. And that's the big thing. The cycles of the earth, the phases of the moon, even the phase of the sun in what we honor as the solstices. Sometimes people don't realize they're honoring that cycle because it takes so long. It's not like the moon cycle. You see that in 28 days. The sun cycle takes 365 days, but it has the same cycle. You see it different phase. It shifts through the sky. It's a great way to bond. I'm sure at some point I'll make a video on it. It's on the list. There's so much information. So, anyways, when any of these faiths, you're seeing that connection with the cycles of life and of earth and of what's happening outside in nature and what you need to do in order to either enhance or counter effect or blend with or make harmony with this energy. Like I said, at the height of the summer solstice or at the winter solstice, we're celebrating fire and honoring that fire on the winter solstice to bring warmth, to counterbalance that cold. However, on the summer solstice, we honor the sun and the fire, but we also bring in the water. And we honor the elements of water, calling for that so that we can counterbalance and find that harmony. So it really is just a learning to find harmony with the cycles of life and honoring that energy. So you might be called to a specific holiday or a specific time, or say you've always felt the need to go camping right around the summer solstice. They're just little things that'll call to you. So that's the way that you celebrate that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a party or a feast or done on the exact day. It can be some variation in what works for you. I highly recommend at least taking a moment, especially at the beginning of your practice, to every time one of the holidays come up, just be aware of that. Be okay, well, it's Imbolc, or it's midwinter, or which are the same holiday, or it's the early harvest on the other side, or whatever is that time of year, and recognize that energy. Look outside your window, see what's happening in the earth, on the earth, around the earth. Feel the earth's energy. You can feel that change throughout the year. If you go outside right now, like I said, it's 0 degrees outside. It's so cold. But I put my hand on the earth and you feel that freezingness, but the ground is warmer now than the air outside, which is like a weird phenomenon because the earth is starting to warm. It's the seasons and the cycle changing. The earth is shifting. The sun is getting brighter. The days are getting longer. These little things really affect the energy all around us. So on the holidays, just look, where is the sun in correlation? Where does it rise or set? I guess it's easier to see where it rises, but where does it rise in correlation with the north and southern hemisphere? Because that changes throughout the year, and that causes that phases of the moon or the sun. And that's how that begins. That's how we see, if you look at like the ancient Aborigine, one of the oldest sun monuments that they've found on Earth, it's shaped like this oblong figure 8 with one end being longer than the other, because this is the summer months where we cast this long shadow. The days are really long, and these are the winter months when our days are really short and we only get a little shadow because the sun is in a different place, and it's amazing. So go outside and look, track the full moon, track whatever, a growing plant, the way, just little things, the energy, and to bond with that energy in that way. And you'll find holidays that speak more to you, that you feel like, oh, I need to throw a party for this holiday, or I need to do it this way or that. As a segue from pagan holidays to Christian holidays, I get into questions asked a lot about pagan parenting, and people who are like, well, how do I incorporate Christian holidays into my pagan practice? So I can only speak of what I do personally. The Easter Bunny doesn't come here. Lepus comes here, Ostra's hair. She comes here, and Ostra, the goddess of spring, and Lepus come and hide eggs and leave presents and visit the home. And we read the story of Ostra's hair, and we celebrate the arrival of spring that way. It's very magical. It's beautiful. It normally happens not on near Easter, so it's kind of weird. But when they go to school, the bunny came to our house. We don't call it the Easter Bunny, but yes, the bunny came to our house. We got presents. It's the same experience. When they use different words, kids just move past that. They had the similar experience. For a long time, when my older daughter would tell family or whatever, Ostra's hair came, Lepus. They'd be like, oh, how cute, you gave the bunny a name. And you mean Easter? She'd be like, Ostra. They'd be like, Easter. She'd be like, Ostra. And they'd be like, she must be saying Easter. And they would just move past it. No need to explain. They just heard what they wanted to, and everybody moved on. And now it's just known that we celebrate a little differently, and that's fine. So for that holiday, that's easy peasy. We just kind of moved it. A little shuffle. For Yule and Christmas, we celebrate both. We don't go to church for Jesus. We do on Easter for my stepdad. We go to church, not because of COVID recently in the last year, probably not this year, but we have normally gone to church just to go to Easter Sunday service. I think that it's good for the children to learn the mythology of Jesus and see how other people worship. I'm not trying to you have to do it this way. There's only one way. No, I make it very clear to my children. the gods and the goddesses and the divine energy come to everybody differently. My stepfather is a very devout Christian, and he is one of the beautiful Christians who really lives by Jesus's word. He doesn't judge the Gentiles or the Jews or me for being pagan. He'll even edit some of the things that I publish, and he does it with, like, sometimes he'll, like, I don't know, and he makes fun of my sister and I. He's always like, when we get to the church, he's like, are you sure you're going to make it? And my sister's like, I don't know, I'm feeling kind of warm. I might combust. And we joke about it. Like, it's funny. We get it. But we respect him. We go into the church. My children go to service. We do the thing with respect because that's what it's about. It's about teaching respect, not tolerance, but acceptance, and that everybody has something different. So we go to church on Easter Sunday. We talk about Jesus. We talk about Jesus, kind of snide about Christmas because Jesus was technically born in either August or March, depending on the translation of the Bible from Aramaic to Arabic and then Greek. There's some weirdness that goes on there, but most scholars will agree that it was in August, nowhere near the winter solstice. Just saying. I was like, I'm going to put my scene of Jesus out in August and be like, blessed Jesus. I think he was a great person. I think he did great thing for the people. I think he preached great words. I think that some of his disciples took it out of context. I definitely think he was used as an example of not what he wanted to be an example of. But anyways, we just teach tolerance and acceptance. We teach that everybody has their own path. So we celebrate both Christmas with Santa, not the religious, but Santa does come to our house on Christmas, and the Holly King comes on Yule, and they are both celebratory times. We go out and celebrate with family. If I knew some people who were Jewish, we would go celebrate Hanukkah with them. I think that the point of that time of year is to celebrate and come together with community, and all of the holidays all around the world, all throughout history, this is what it was. In ancient Rome, it didn't matter what you celebrated. Everybody got the time off and partied together and celebrated and was like, we are succeeding. So the more power to you. Celebrate what calls to you, I guess. Don't get caught up in this or that. Now, okay. If you made it this far, thank you. You're amazing. Here is why I don't celebrate Christian holidays. And there was a point in my life before I had children where I was so adamant against celebrating Christian holidays that I always worked on Christmas. I made it very clear I don't celebrate Christmas. And now that we have children, it's different because my husband's not pagan and we have to, and I respect that. And also I want them to enjoy that magic of Christmas and to welcome Santa into the home and things of that nature. But before I had children, that was a big no-no. And still now, that's the only one, other than like we go to church on Easter and we celebrated how like a devout Easter should be celebrated. You go to church, you have a big dinner, you talk about the resurrection of Jesus because that's what it is. So, but before I had children, there was none of that. I still don't celebrate. My husband gets the break on Valentine's Day. He tells all his friends, he's like, oh, I don't have to celebrate that holiday. And they're like, oh, you're so lucky. Well, yeah, he brings me gifts on midwinter, and he brings me fresh flowers to plant or plants. Like he brought me a whole tray of strawberries one year on Beltane, because that's when we celebrate the love of us coming together. That's our Valentine's Day. But it's not celebrated with like diamonds and the Hallmark money kind of thing. So, originally, and I still feel this way, but originally for me, it was about not celebrating the holidays of the people who killed my ancestors. I have a very strong connection to the ancestors who were persecuted in Scotland and Ireland many generations ago. Like back when St. Patrick was there removing the snakes. And to the point where there are times when I feel so connected to this where I get physically angry at the thought of celebrating someone who put so many of my, not mine directly, but also other people of, Scottish and Irish descent, of our ancestors into persecution and slavery and forced change, and who colonized that area. I have many past lives that I can remember where I was of the people being colonized. So at one point, my sister told me she was concerned as to whether I was having a psychotic break because, however, magically and past life regression wise, what I was saying was amazing and super cool and was like, oh, this is so cool. She's a trained psychiatrist, or whatever term. I think it's the ist. Anyways, so she has a degree in this, and this is her thing. She's like, I would be concerned about you having like some split personality or some borderline personality disorder going on or some issues. It's the first, I promise. It's not like crazy. This is a thing. But for me, celebrating the holidays of Christianity and celebrating the saints and celebrating the people who did these not good things hurts my soul, like, deeply. I laugh about Columbus. I don't know why we want to celebrate Columbus. He wasn't a great sailor. I mean, he got around the world. He also spread syphilis all around the world, to the point where if you look at places where he landed in South America and in the Bahamas and anywhere in between, and he would leave sailors behind, they typically got all the locals sick with syphilis, who all then died, who were like mad, and then there would be wars because they were like, you killed all these people because you got us all sick and you're bringing these evil here. Yeah, he got around the world. He was like, anyways, I'm not even going to go there. It'll go to a bad place because I find it offensive. I find it offensive that we have a mountain here in Colorado. Pikes Peak is named after Jebediah Pike, who was a bad person. So I learned as a child that we call that mountain Grandmother Mountain. We do not honor Jebediah Pike by calling this grand, beautiful mountain that he desecrated. Take a moment. It's angering. I don't feel like we should honor these people. And this, for me, has always been this way. When my husband was like, he's like, all right, I get it. Let's not name any new football teams, the Indians, or the Chiefs or whatever, Redskins. They're all baseball teams, but Washington Redskins, whatever. I don't even know. All of these sports teams that have these very offensive names, we need to get rid of them. And he, at one point, was like, let's all just move on. It's been like that for a long time. I said, yeah, but that just because it's been like that way for a long time doesn't make it okay. And I'm sorry, that's wrong. Like, I am in full support. Let me sign that petition. Let me fix this. It has to change. We need to rename the mountains. We need to rename the rivers. Like, these colonizers should not be honored in that way. And for me, it comes into the holidays. So I don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day. 100%. Do not celebrate St. Patrick's Day. No matter, if you read what the Catholic Church has published about him, which I always love, is people are like, this is it. This is the real history. The real history, the real fact is that there was more than one Saint Patrick. Patrick was a name taken by many bishops who then went to Ireland because it was a name that the locals would be able to bond with. If you came and you were St. Valentine, they were like, Valentine, what kind of name is that? You are a crazy foreigner. Patrick was a name that they could connect with, and therefore they did. So many bishops who came wore that name, took on that name when they came to Ireland and Scotland and began to colonize and to spread Christianity. I am not saying that anybody in that time period was like a nice colonizer and was like, hey, let's battle over resources and I'm going to be nice to you. I'm not saying that's what happened. Every single person on this earth has an ancestor or a past life or a something who was a slave and who was a slave owner, who was a colonizer and who was colonized, who was whatever. You can't, even people who now are getting their genealogy and they're like, oh, I found out that I'm not all this, because you're not. And so throughout time, that's just kind of what's happened. And it's a sad, sad, disgusting part of our history that we need to learn from and talk about so that we don't repeat these, so that we stop slavery that's happening right now all over the world. Anyways, really against this. It's so frustrating. But anyways, so I don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. However, Valentine was a saint who is made renowned because he was performing weddings when other bishops wouldn't, in places where the church was trying to get rid. Here's one way that the church has controlled places that it's colonized, is that they've restricted who you can and cannot marry, and if you can and cannot marry. So they wouldn't bless the marriage, and therefore the marriage wouldn't be seen by the church, and therefore it didn't count. And so St. Valentine was one that was performing weddings when the church said no, and he continued this, and he says, you know what, we can't stop. And so, okay, what he did was really noble, and he stuck it to the church as someone in the church saying, no, we can't take this right away from people. But he was still a bishop in the church. He was still a part of colonization. This is just one more person who was not as bad as the rest. But I don't celebrate the Christian holidays. I do celebrate all 8 of the pagan Sabbaths. I honor the moon cycles, and each person is going to find holidays that work for them. So before my camera tells me that it's going to switch over to 2 videos, hurry quick. I toast to you and all you do. I hope that you're having a fantastic day. I hope this answered some of your questions about pagans and holidays and which ones you do and do not celebrate. As always, if you have any questions, don't forget to comment below and let me know. I'm always available. I try to be available. And yeah, like, subscribe, and all that hot stuff. We will talk to you all soon. Many blessings.